Does the description matter? Former U.S. spokesperson to the United Nations, Rick Grenell, goes on the record. Good evening, sir.
Good to see you, Greta.
Rick, you know, there's an awful lot of time that's being spent arguing over what we should call these hateful, ugly, radical extremists, Islamists, or is this energy misspent, or is this important?
I think it's very important because it has policy implications. You know, when you say that you don't want to offend Islam, and so you're not going to put the word radical in front of it, that means you're really going out of your way to make sure that you're not offending through the policy. And I think that really translates through every bureau at the State Department. It becomes a problem. It's why 5 years after, or I should say 4 years after President Obama said that he would have his calculus changed if somehow Assad crossed a red line and started using chemical or biological weapons. We know Assad did that. The UN confirmed it. The world confirmed it. And yet President Obama didn't want to do it because what? He didn't want to offend a faith by invading a country. He's made this political promise. I think Rudy Giuliani is right. He's made the political promise before he has seen the intelligence. The political promise was, I'm not going to put any boots on the ground. I'm not going to send any American troops. He hadn't even seen the intelligence before he made that political promise in Iowa.
All right. That's President Obama. As we look to 2016 and the Americans have to make a decision between Donald Trump and Secretary Hillary Clinton, at what point, I mean, Secretary Clinton does say, I'm looking at the quote right now, June 13th, she uses the word radical Islamism. So she says that to what extent does she get pinned with the statements of President Obama or the strategy when she does appear to be making some break from him. She said ISIS should be destroyed, not contained. But is this going to poison her going into 2016 with many?
Well, I think she's going to have a problem with her base because she certainly didn't use these phrases during the primary. She only did it once she secured the nomination, and then she began to do the pivot. Look, I think that you've got to hold people to their actual work, and if you go back to the tenure of Secretary Clinton and you read her book, which was her chance before she was running for president to lay out her policy strategies, there wasn't one policy strategy in her book that she differed from President Obama on. So she's going to have a very hard time trying to say that she's different, even though she's trying to pivot. This is going to be a third term for Obama, and she is going to have to try to articulate where she differs, but she's trapped by the fact that people are then going to say, but when you had the power as Secretary of State, you didn't do anything. You may articulate a difference now, but in action, you didn't do anything.
All right. I don't know if you agree with me or not, but I think it's important that we work with some world leaders, that we lead. We're the superpower that we lead. The world leaders seem to have, a lot of them will say more favorable things, at least right now, about Secretary Clinton against and not Donald Trump so much. Especially we've heard things out of the UK and about Donald Trump. How does that factor into the vote in November? How the world looks at our leaders or what they think, does that matter?
Yeah, it does matter, and it's a very important question. Look, I served at the UN for 8 years with 192 countries on a daily basis all around me. I can tell you that the UN and the world community deals with whatever government is put before them. They don't always like these governments, whether it be in Africa, the Middle East, Asia, or in the United States, but they always deal with them. That's the first point. The second point is countries want a weak United States. They don't want a strong one, certain countries, but there's a point now where I think countries like Turkey and Israel, other NATO countries, France, for instance, they want to see an American president that leads. They have watched for 8 years. The French president has begged President Obama to take action, whether it be in Mali or the Middle East. He hasn't done it. Hillary Clinton was that spokesperson. So I think it's really important that you calculate these other countries' desire to have a weak opponent in certain instances, so they're going to advocate for that one.
Rick, I got to go. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Greta.
And why are the president and his CIA director saying different things about ISIS? Should they not be on the same page? Does it make you nervous? How much risk are we at? Our On the Record special continues next.